Hi there, it's Katrin from 3Ps. I wanted to talk about the Cravings book that I've written, which is available if you click through from this video. And that book is called Ten Cravings Busters. It's an Amazon bestseller. Thank you very much for those who've already bought it. That's fantastic. I wrote it because I wanted to help those who were overcoming alcohol and particularly those who were thinking about stopping drinking but were worried or were prevented from making that decision because they were worried what they do about craving. So the book is available on Amazon. It's quite a short book, but it's got quite a lot packed between its pages. And I just want to talk about the general themes in the book just to give you an idea of what's in there. So there are 10 strategies that I've written into the book, and these are based on the strategies which I think work best. And these are strategies that work with alcohol, and they work with lots of other habits that you want to change. So it could be sugar, it could be gambling, it could be shopping, whatever it may be. The point about these strategies is they help you to avoid doing what you have the urge to do. And obviously a craving is an urge that it has an emotional centre, but it's an urge to do something which you have resolved not to do. So in the alcohol context, obviously it's the wish to drink. And I think that one of the things that when we stop drinking is the hardest is the worry of how you will handle cravings. The first thing I would say, and I think you should really bear this in mind right from the outset, is that a craving is not an order you have to obey. Okay, so a craving is an emotional need, a hole that you want to fill, but that doesn't mean you have to obey it. So a lot of these strategies are about trying to deflect that urge until it goes away, because the other point I make about cravings is that cravings don't last forever. You know, they're like black storm clouds in cartoons. They sort of, they sit above your head for a while and then they go away. So you don't have to think that because you desperately want to drink right now that you're going to feel like that in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour a day. You know, they come and go. And as you become more used to not drinking, those cravings do dissipate until they're a very rare occurrence. I've had lots of bad habits, and I used to be a heavy smoker many years ago. And when I stopped smoking, it probably took about a year to become completely comfortable with not being a smoker. And I would get, cravings for, quite a while after that, but they became much less of an issue. So don't be worried that you're going to be plagued by cravings for the rest of your life. You're not. The point of the book is to help you overcome the fear of cravings when you're deciding not to drink, because they really aren't something to be scared of, and also to give you some coping strategies so that when you do feel that you want to drink, there are other things you can do, because these strategies really do work, and they're based on, there are a lot of strategies out there. These are based on the 10 that are the most successful and the most probably widely used, but you do use whatever feels right for you. And I would also suggest that you work your way through each of the strategies in the book, because in different situations you may want different strategies. So for example, in some situations the talking strategy, to simply talking to someone, or going online, for example, going to Soberistas, or going to HelloSundayMorning.org, or whichever Facebook group you're on, that's a really effective strategy. That's a talking strategy. In other cases that might not be the right strategy, and what you may need to do is, for example, get outside. Maybe it's you're cooped up at home and you're bored, and you need to get outside and do something else. So that's the distraction strategy, is a good one. So there are 10 strategies in the book. I'm just going to go through them and just give my comments on them, but all the real detail is in the book. Okay, so in terms of the strategy, the first one is, and I put this in the book deliberately at the start, is the grow up and get serious strategy. And I could have buried that in the pages near the back and said, don't worry about that now, but I thought I might as well get it up front. I'm not expecting you, the moment you stop drinking, to decide I'm going to, going to face up to all of the issues that drove me to be wanting to drink in the first place. But I think it's something which probably not in the early stages of sobriety, but probably the mid to second stage of sobriety. So 9 months onwards, you want to start thinking about what the triggers were that caused you to drink, and whether or not you should address whatever it is that those triggers were. So that is a strategy, which is a longer term strategy, but I got it out early, number one in the book, so that you know where you're headed. And I promise you that as you become more used to being without a drink, you will become stronger and more able to deal with what the underlying issues are, because there are inevitably, with all of us, there were reasons why we drank, reasons why we felt we needed alcohol to cope, And it's important that, you know, as part of growing up and as part of maturing and as part of being proud of yourself, when you no longer drink and you feel able to be a grown-up, that you address those issues. Okay, so that's the first one, but it's probably not to be dealt with, not to use right at the outset. The next one is the distraction or la 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 strategy, and that is very effective in the very early days. So if you feel the need to drink, if you have a craving, go and do something else, distract yourself, do anything. Go for a walk, walk the dog, put some music on, watch a movie, do some meditation, have a chocolate bar. You know, you hear people who talk about having, you know, 3 magnums back to back. Well, in the early days of sobriety, it doesn't really matter what you do, because your number one priority is not to drink. The commitment you make to yourself is that under no circumstances will you take a drink, under no circumstances. So when it comes to feeling the urge to drink, distract yourself, because you're not going to give in. And remember that cravings don't last forever, and the number of cravings will lessen as you get along the road of sobriety. But in the initial days, just distract yourself, go off and do something else. Okay, so the next one is, as I mentioned this earlier, is the talking strategy. So having support is massively helpful, and all the research says that if you are in some sort of group, or you have accountability to a group, that you're much more likely to succeed. Now in the old days that obviously meant going physically to a group, and you know, AA has got a central role and continues to have a very important role in helping people not to drink. Nowadays, of course, social networks have taken over, and although all the stereotypes are that it's, you know, young boy nerds who are online, actually, believe it or not, the majority of social network users are women, so you know, because we enjoy the social aspect of that. When it comes to not drinking, there are loads of networks there. You know, you can look at the, you know, ones like Soberistas, which is great particularly for women. You obviously have AA, which is now online. You've got HelloSundayMorning.org, which is one that started in Australia. It's doing really well. You've got organisations like Straight Edge, which are no drugs, no alcohol, no cigarettes. That's a good one. There are loads online. If you feel you need a group, you're naturally a social person, and you think you need the accountability of a group that you can reach for when you have a craving, then you know, get involved. I think they're tremendous ways to get group support. Okay, so that's your talking strategy. Next is the experience the craving strategy. Now that may sound terrifying. I think the thing about cravings is they're a bit like the sound of a baby's cry, by which I mean that, you know, when you hear a baby cry, the research says that you estimate the cry as happening for a lot longer than it actually does. Now, why does that happen? Well, psychologists say that the reason that you are so upset by a baby's cry is because it reminds you of all your own unmet needs. So particularly if you've you've not had all your needs met as a child, if you hear a baby cry, it reminds you of what it was like to be at that age and have needs, and it raises all those doubts and churns up all those feelings from your childhood. Now, when it comes to cravings, it's again, I think the fear of cravings is the fear that you'll have a need that you can't meet. And the point with alcohol often is you've used alcohol as a way to meet a need. It may not be the best way to meet a need, but you've used it to meet a need, and you're worried about leaving a need unmet. Well, sitting that craving out is one way to basically to face the fear and do it anyway. So to basically say, yes, I have a craving, I'm just going to sit with it. And longer term, you know, in the 6 months plus sobriety period, sitting with a craving is something which becomes easier and easier. I mean, obviously you'll have fewer cravings, but when you do have them, it's not so scary, because you know the craving does not have to be obeyed. It is simply a message to you, there's something you need to address, but you don't have to address it with a drink. So sitting it out and thinking about it, why do I want to drink at this moment? It's part of the self-analysis that you'll go through when you become a more mature, sober person. To look at, well, what was it that triggered my drinking? Was it, you know, was it a need for love? Was it a feeling of isolation? You know, it's the classic, you know, the classic set of needs which Alcoholics Anonymous talks about in terms of what will trigger a drink. Now, it's individual to all people, but in terms of the external triggers, they're going to be things like, you know, people, places, so particularly people you drank with, particular places that you drank, and in the early days you need to avoid those places, obviously. And then you'll look at your more internal triggers, and those could be things like being hungry, being angry, being tired, and being lonely. This hungry, angry, lonely, tired. So those are your internal triggers. Now, this particular strategy is about sitting the craving out. So sitting out the feeling, but maybe trying to understand what it is that's causing the craving. And that again will come as you become more used to not drinking. This is not a hard, I don't want to make it sound this is a hard process. It's not a hard process. And it becomes a real pleasure to be a bit more reflective. You have the emotional energy and the pride in yourself because you're doing something for your own health, that you can start looking at what it is that you really need to feel good about yourself, and it's not a drink. Okay, so that's sitting your craving out. The next one is to play the tape till the end. Now this one's really useful, I think, and particularly in the early days, and that is when you feel like you want a drink, is to say, what happens if I take that drink? What's going to happen? Let's play this tape to the end. So I have one drink. Is it ever going to be one drink? Very unlikely. Even if it's only one drink today, will it be one drink tomorrow? When will it become 2? When will it become 3? When will it become 4? The whole point you are on this journey is because you can't control your drinking. So if there's a fantasy or the wine witch in your head saying, just have one, play the tape to the end. So 1 will never stay at 1, it will become more. What happens when it becomes more? What sort of scrapes will you get into? What sort of self-criticism and recrimination will you get into? What depression will it cause? What difficulties will it cause with your family, with your parenting? Just literally play that tape to the end, and that will generally be enough to put you off taking that first drink. I always believed the adage, just stay away from the first drink. If you can stay away from the first drink, it becomes very, very simple. Just stay away from the first drink and the rest takes care of itself. But if you have the wine witch saying, just take one, play that tape to the end. Why are you trying to stop in the first place? What is it that made you so unhappy with your drinking that you decided to stop? Don't lose those feelings. You're going to obviously move away from them, but don't forget them. And use this play the tape till the end strategy to remind yourself of why you are not drinking. Okay, so the next one is the self-talk strategy. So this is you actually talking to yourself, and you actually being willing to acknowledge to yourself that you've made a commitment, and reminding yourself of your reasons why you've stopped drinking. And one of the things that often you will do when you first stop drinking is to write down all the reasons why you've stopped drinking. It's the classic way. If you want to break a habit, you commit to break the habit, and then you write down your whys. And there should be at least 2 reasons why you are changing a habit. And in terms of drinking, there should be at least 2 reasons why you are stopping drinking. And that's what you need to look at in terms of self-talk. If you've got a craving, go back, have a look at those notes, have those handy. You can put those notes up by your bed, wherever you're going to see them regularly, so on your bathroom mirror, wherever you want to put them at home, but have those handy so that if you get an urge to drink, you can talk yourself down from that by looking at that list and saying, well, these are the reasons I decided to stop, and these reasons are still valid. These reasons I haven't changed. Alcohol hasn't changed. Alcohol and I are not a good combination because, okay. So that's number 6. Number 7 is the meditation strategy. Now, you don't have to become a yogi and go to India to meditate. And now with the internet, you can very easily download meditations from iTunes, for example, and a lot of them are free. And the thing is that when you drink, often the reason you're drinking is because you're trying to get out of your head. You're trying to shift your state to a state where you don't feel certain things. Now, as I've said, I think that's a coping strategy. It's just not a very good long-term coping strategy. But there's no reason why you can't substitute a more healthy coping strategy for those feelings. And one of the things that will help enormously is if you learn to meditate, because meditation also shifts your state. So if you're used to shifting your state with alcohol, you'll be amazed to see there is a healthy way to do that, which is meditation. And meditation can move you from being highly anxious, highly wanting a drink, into a much calmer state quite quickly. So I would suggest that you have on your phone some preloaded meditation. So when a craving hits, you can simply put your headphones on wherever you are and just spend a few minutes calming down and shifting state. It's really, really effective. I think it's the closest you get to that feeling of initial relaxation you get from alcohol. You get that from meditation, but it's obviously a far more positive way to do it. And long term, you'll end up with much greater levels of calmness and happiness if you meditate. So use meditation as a way to beat cravings, but think of it more broadly as a way to keep yourself healthy going forward. So have a go. The next one is the no matter what strategy, and this is, I alluded to this earlier. This is the idea that when you decide not to drink, it can't be conditional. You can't say, well, I'm not going to drink except for New Year, or except when it's my birthday, or except when my boss asks me if I want a glass of wine, or my mother-in-law, whatever it may be. You've got to decide no matter what. You've got to decide that it doesn't matter if there's a war or an earthquake, or your mother-in-law pressures you, or whatever it may be, you will not drink. Now that, some people, that's I will not drink today. Some people it's I will not drink in the next hour. For some people it's I will not drink forever. You can decide for yourself what you're comfortable with saying to yourself. You don't have to declare yourself, you don't have to put a placard out, you don't have to wear, you know, a sackcloth and ashes t-shirt that says I'm an alcoholic. None of that's relevant. What's relevant is what you are committed to internally for yourself. And that needs to be something time related, and it's got to be no matter what. So I will not have a drink in the next hour, no matter what. As you become sober longer term, and you start to reap the benefits of that in terms of how you feel about yourself and what you're able to achieve, and your general mood levels, you may feel more comfortable in committing to a longer period. You know, you get a lot of people who take, you know, one of those challenges in and not drink for a month, for example. Now, some will go back to drinking and some won't. But for the long-term sober, often you'll start with, I'll commit to a month. And that's fine. But the point is, whatever your commitment is, you have to stick to that. So no matter what, you're not going to drink. Even when you're dying for a drink, you just say to yourself, I committed that no matter what, I am not taking a drink for this period, whatever the period is. And don't allow any more debate on that. As I always say, no compromise, no surrender. That's it, okay? So, number 9 is the positive strategy, and that is to try to find ways in that situation to switch from the craving for alcohol to something more positive, and that often is about going off and doing something positive. So, getting out into nature is a great example. Nature is a natural feeder of your soul, and as I said, often the craving comes from an emotional centre within you and a need that you need to fulfil, and nature can do that often, and can shift your state for you to something which is not a non-craving, more positive state. So look at ways to move to a more positive state. Get out into nature, go and look at some art. You can probably see in the background here I have some oils, paintings and some sculpture. I have a lot of art around my house because I find I find beauty really positive. And I also tweet, and I will tweet views where I run, and just the views sometimes are so beautiful, and it just feeds my soul. And I think that's really, you know, when you stop drinking, it's important that you have something bigger and more positive to aim for. So taking pleasure in nature is part of that. So find whatever your own positivity is, but then basically focus on that when you get a craving, rather than focusing on the craving. And the last one, which is linked, is this idea that you get outside. And it always reminds me of what my mother said to me. My mother had triplets, I'm a triplet, and I can't imagine what that was like. But she always said to me, you know, the thing with children is when they're screaming their heads off, get outside, because it always feels better and sounds better when you're in the open air. And I always follow that, and I remember, I have twins myself, and I remember taking them out when they were small babies, and they were both screaming in the pram, you know, in unison. I remember people looking at me pityingly, but actually I was fine, because I was out there, it was a beautiful day, and I was out in the open air, and I was actually able to some extent to tune off the screaming and just look at the view and enjoy the view, but it just calmed me down to be outside. So when you have a craving and you're rattling around at home, or you're at work and you know things are stressful, go for a walk around the block. Obviously don't walk past the off licence, and don't walk past your usual drinking hole, but get out and enjoy nature. And linked to this, I think one of the hard things that people think about where summer is coming is that they're going to miss that drink in the pub garden, they're going to miss that drink with the barbecue. And I think by getting outside, you'll start to re-imprint your appreciation of sunny days, so it's not about having a drink in your hand. You know, another classic one is when you go on holiday and you're used to having a drink on holiday, and again, you just need to do your first sober holiday in the sunshine to realise that you can enjoy nature and you can enjoy good weather without having a drink. So get outside, if you have a craving. So those are my top 10 cravings busters, and as I said, the book is called Top 10 Cravings Busters, and it's available on Amazon now. As I said, it's a bestseller, which is just amazing. But I think that's because it's short, sharp, it gets to the point, and it helps. The point is, I wrote it to help, and I think it helps. So I'm really happy about that. If you want to send me a comment, you can do that. You can put a comment underneath. You can also go onto my website and leave a comment there. There's lots of stuff on there about health and fitness and nutrition. You can email me direct. I'm at catherine.turner@3pspublishing.com. Again, I'll put the link underneath. I'm the publisher of the book, so I'm being arranged in any comments you've got about the book or other suggestions about things that we could help with in terms of your journey to being alcohol free. The very best of luck, the very best of encouragement, whatever. As I said, no surrender, no compromise. I know you'll do well. You'll particularly do well if you use all the tools available, including my book. And I thank you very much for watching this, and I hope it's helped. So I'll see you soon. Bye.